I mean, you can marry so many different options in there. Okay, so now we have our border, and our border is 6.5 inches wide here. And what I've done is I've located the center. This is the inner edge of the border, and this right here signifies the the 1/4 inch in from the edge, this outer sewn line. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line right in the center of that border just as a reference. And then just like when we drew, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to line this up. And again, I'm going to use my 45°, and I'm going to start from this corner. And I am going to line that right up, right to the edge. I've got my perfect 45. Okay, and that's, of course, this is the Bowen white chalk. On this light blue, it shows up perfect. Now I'm going to line this up, 45°. And I'm going to line that up right on the seam here to give me my perfect 45. Turn it the other way, line up that 45° here, slide it over until it meets up here. Again, I'm checking two things. I'm checking this and I'm checking that right up at the top where it hits that edge. Down. Now, again, I'm going to do my other 45, which ends up being about, I would say, about an inch away from the center line. So I'm simply going to tilt my ruler coming from this point all the way up to this point. And actually, let me grab a longer ruler for that. Line that up. So there I meet in the middle. Next, I'm going to start, and I'm actually going to go back to this corner. And I'm going to line that up. Again, I've got my 45° line here. And I'm simply going to put in this within my throat space all the way down. Okay. So now I'm going to head over to my other side, the other corner, and we're going to head in from that corner into the middle. Okay, so now at this corner, I'm going to line up my 45° along the top here, come down, turn my ruler, line up my 45° right on the seam of the body of the quilt, up, turn my ruler, line my 45° again back on this seam, slide it over, just like we did on the paper. Now I'm back to the spot where we're going to hit this middle. And so again, I would be an inch short if I use the 45° to come up. So I'm going to go ahead, use my longer ruler, and I'm simply going to go right to that center. So this triangle right here is simply just a little bit wider than the other regular ones. And now again, I'm going to go back to this corner, line up my 45, and carry that on down within my throat space. Now I am on my Amara, which is a 20-inch throat machine. I would have to roll this forward to be able to get this whole triangle in. So I'm just going to focus on the top right now as we quilt this. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to use my straight ruler. And I am going to go into each of the triangles, line that up, put a straight line right across the seam, and we're going to divide that right in half. Again, it takes me possibly, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if I'm having a slow day, to mark a whole border across. So it doesn't take that long, and I know that I'm going to have everything as close to perfect as I possibly can. Line that up, come across, work my way over, and then head from the center out, divide those lines. Again, I always want to make sure, I know I keep saying this, but that's so important so that you don't end up with a leany line. Okay, so I'm going to line this right up on the seam. And the seam is visually important to me because even if the quilt border is off, as long as I'm lining up my straight line with the seam of the quilt, it's visually going to look correct. Because piecing is not a perfect science. Okay, so now we've got that all the way across. So we're going to get a wide shot on that to show you the marks that I have so far. Okay, excellent. So now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start, and I think on the drawn version, because it was in such a small space, we used 1/4 inch, and on this one I'm actually going to use 1/2 inch inner and outer echo. So I'm going to flip my ruler over. I like to use a piece of tape on the back of my ruler, then I don't even have to think about it. This particular tape we have made for backs of rulers. This is not a non-slip tape. What it is simply there to mark. Like here I've got 1/4 inch to make that easy, and then here I'm marking at the 1/2 inch to make that easy as I mark my 1/2 inch in. That way I simply slide the ruler to where the tape is. Okay. And I can keep removing and putting that tape back over and over, unlike painter's tape, which after 1 or 2 slips with the ruler, it's going to start coming off. So I'm going to line that up, and again, now we have this line, and so I know that when I mark my 1/2 inch, I go right to that line, pivot my ruler, line that up, and continue on. Line that up, extend my chalk. I love this bow and chalk. It also comes in a, oops. So I'm out. I'm going to get another piece of chalk in here. As I was saying, I love my bow and chalk. And this, again, comes this long, and I only use the white, and I simply push that out to get my holder out there, and then I simply slide it in, so it's the opposite of releasing it. And there we go. Okay. And get rid of my refill. And this little box of refill I've had for a year or so. Stuff lasts and lasts and lasts. Okay. Up, stop, turn, slide, stop, turn. And again, what I'm doing, let's get a close-up on that. Is I'm taking my 1/2 inch section here, and I'm simply sliding that until the tape hits the line that I have there. Not just up here, but I also want to check down here because I could have it where it's wide here and narrow here. So we want to make sure that the tape is touching that line all the way, so it's a nice close 1/2 inch. Line it up, turn it up, and we're going to go all the way over. Again, that is another wonderful thing about that line that we add in there. That may seem a little bit OCD to folks, but when we have that line in, we know right where to stop. We don't keep going over and then having a little X at the end of each thing here. Line that up. Turn. Line that up. Turn. Line that up so it's right there. Get that ruler out of your way. Turn. Pivot. Mark. So now we have all of our outer triangles done. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning and we're going to do the inside triangles. Okay, so now I'm going to line that up. Over, stop. Over, stop at the line, pivot, turn. And we're getting all of our insides. And you'll notice, and I know I've mentioned this before, but in case you haven't heard me, or you're new to the way that I do this, I actually mark most of my quilting on the frame. I prefer that because everything is stable. Things are not going to shift. If I were to mark this off the frame, what could happen is once I load it, and depending on the quilt, if there's some distortion, once I get it loaded on the bars and I get a little bit of stretch on it, not stretch, but a little bit of tightness, then the lines could distort and then they're no longer straight lines. So that's why I prefer to mark things on the frame. The only, one of the only exceptions for me would be if I were marking a whole cloth. Then I would pre-mark the areas, but mark the main design on the frame. Okay, so now let's get a wide shot of this. Okay. So now we have our area all drawn out. So now the next part is we're going to go ahead and we're going to quilt all of these straight lines before we go into our circle work. Okay, so now we're over on our left side. I'm going to start here, lock my stitches out at the edge. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, slide over, continue on. And what I'm doing is the outer echo here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back and then do the inside, unless I choose not to. So we shall see which path I'm going to follow. Sometimes that's going to be a mystery because there's a lot of options. Lock my stitches. I am set at, let me check my screen here, I am at 12 stitches per inch for this. Got my ruler all set up, and because I'm doing 1, 2, 3, I put some sticky on the back of my ruler so it's not going to slide. P.S. I have the ruler foot on. You always have your ruler foot on, and I have my extended base on. One, 2, 3, stop, pivot, line it up with my line. One, 2, 3. And because of the angle I'm shooting, I have a little bit of shrapnel right there, so I did lock my stitches a little extra right here, and then I will end up removing that little bit right there. Part of the real life world of quilting. Okay, slide up there, and I think I will go ahead and I will slide down with my 45-degree miter in the corner. Line that up, and again I'm about a 1/4 inch away from my hopping foot. 1, and on this one I'm just going to go 1, 2. That's going to be plenty, whether it's 2 or 1, 2, 3. It's going to be approximately the same thickness. Slide over, and again remember, when I'm sliding over and working, I'm actually just barely a few stitches into my 1/4 inch where my binding is going to hit. So now I'm going to line up my ruler again, and I'm going to work my way all the way across the quilt. 1, 2, 3, 'Turn my ruler, line it up. 1, 2, 3. Slide over. Okay, and now I'm right there, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that middle one as I go, which will be a 1, 2. Line that up about a 1/4 inch away. 1, 2, stop, ditch, line up, and again we're going to continue working all the way over. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, over, 1, 2, over, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So in fact, right here, what I'm going to do, instead of going into the V shape, is I'm going to save myself a little time, go back to the middle line, that very first 45-degree that we made, and I'm going to go ahead and get that done. 1, 2, now slide over. 1, 2, 3, pivot, 1, 2, 3, over, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I'm not even going to say it. Oh, yes I am. So, do you all realize what I did? I'm doing the exact version we drew. So, once we finish quilting this out, what I'm actually going to do is we're going to go back to the paper, and I'm going to show you that alternate version with cornerstones on paper. 1, 2, 3. Rich, why'd you let me do that?
I did.
You noticed and you didn't say a word. Well, You dirty bird. Dirty, dirty birdie. 3. And again, one of the reasons that I always like to do at least this outer line a little bit thicker, even if you didn't do the middle line thicker, this outer line I like thicker because that way when I do the rays, I can actually use this line to travel in to do my rays. And then it's not noticeable, as you will see. One, 2, and again, if I didn't have sticky stuff on the back of my ruler, then my ruler would slip and I would get a few double lines here. So if you get double lines when you're trying to make a little bit thicker line, like I said, just do yourself a favor. Add a little adhesive to the back of your ruler. And I have some YouTube tutorials up on that. And actually, we'll get, if you're on the, of course, Patreon channel, we'll get another fresh one up about that up here on the Patreon channel. 1, 2, 3, turn, shift, and I have my table very low right now, and I'm on my saddle stool, which I love. 2, and slide right along. I have days where I like to stand and quilt, and then I have the days where it's nice to just be in my saddle stool. Okay. 1 middle line, go right down, touch the corner, tag you're it, come back, travel down. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that inside. One, 2, so here the ruler is so stable because I'm keeping it right in the center. And now if this were a longer line that I would actually be quilting, then I would be walking my hand to keep it near the hopping foot. And with the handle, of course, it's keeping it, no matter whose straight ruler you use, whether you're using the Quilter's Apothecary or somebody else's. If you have a longer ruler than, let's say, 8 inches, you're going to end up walking your fingers with that ruler. Now this tends to be the perfect distance for this particular line, because it's not going the whole distance of this particular small 45 ruler. That as long as I keep it, my hand in the center, it's the perfect distance to come down, back, and up, that it's keeping everything stable along with that sticky stuff on the back. We're going to go here, and this line is not in my throat space. So notice, if you can you bring that down just a little bit, you'll see that it doesn't make it inside my throat space. Now, I could roll the quilt, but that's how real life is, so I'm going to leave this one alone. I'm going to lock my stitches here, and now I've got to go and I've got to quilt all the inside triangles. Lock my stitches. turn. I know I'm getting close to being out of bobbin here, so I'm going to chance it and go. And when we run out of bobbin, I'll take out a few stitches back to a point and relock on. 3, turn, pivot, line it up, and again I'm keeping that lined up. And in real life, sometimes, you know, if this were an actual seam, if people had pieced these triangles, you're still going to have to shift that ruler to stay in that ditch the best you can. 1, 2, 3, and this next one right over here, Rich, when we come down that, if we want to get a good close-up, I want to talk for a second about that straight line. Okay, back just a hair, line that up. And again, I would have already ditched between the body and border, which I already clarified to you all, and retraveling that ditch. A lot of people get weird about, ooh, am I allowed to retravel the ditch? Well, of course you are. Why wouldn't you be able to retravel a ditch? Up, 2, 3, I'm up here. Okay, so now here, what I want to show is when we come down that, see how stable that ruler, it's not going to slide. And that's what I love about having that adhesive on the back of my ruler. It keeps it nice and stable. And normally for this type of work, I have a book on tape going in the background, so I'm quilting away, listening to a good book for all of you bookworms out there like myself. I'll tell you, audiobooks, well, I just aged myself when I said book on tape, but audiobooks for tradespeople and artists have been a lifesaver. I would never have time to sit and read a book like when I was younger or in my old career back in my nursing days. All right, so now let's get a wide shot on that. Snip my tails. Okay, so now we have our base in. So now I'm going to grab a couple different sizes of our long arm circles and let's audition a few different sizes.